The movie starts in modern times, where a treasure hunter named Brock Lovett and his team are exploring the wreck of the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean. They are looking for a very valuable diamond called the Heart of the Ocean. The diamond is believed to have gone down with the ship when it sank in 1912. During their search, they find a locked safe and are excited, thinking the diamond might be inside. But instead of the diamond, they find an old drawing of a young woman wearing the necklace. Curious about the woman in the sketch, Brock and his team share the image on television, hoping it will lead them to more clues about the diamond. Meanwhile, an elderly woman named Rose Dawson Calvert sees the sketch on TV. She calls the treasure hunters and tells them that she is the woman in the drawing. Brock, eager to learn more, invites Rose to their research ship to hear her story. Rose arrives with her granddaughter and begins to tell the story of her time on the Titanic. Her memories take everyone back to 1912, just before the ship's tragic sinking. Rose describes her life as a young woman, her struggles with the strict expectations of high society, and how she met Jack Dawson, a kind and free-spirited artist. Rose begins to tell the story of her life in April 1912, when she was a 17-year-old girl about to board the Titanic. The Titanic was the largest and most luxurious ship of its time, a true marvel of engineering. People called it unsinkable, and it was filled with passengers from all over the world. Some were wealthy people enjoying a life of luxury, while others were immigrants traveling in hope of a better future in America. The Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, on its very first voyage to New York City, carrying over 2,000 passengers and crew. At that time, young Rose DeWitt Bukater was part of the first-class passengers. She was traveling with her rich fiancé, Cal Hockley, and her strict mother, Ruth. For them, the Titanic was not just a ship but a symbol of their status and wealth. Ruth believed Rose's engagement to Cal would save their family from financial ruin. However, Rose was deeply unhappy. She felt trapped by the high expectations placed on her and by the controlling behavior of Cal, who treated her more like a possession than a partner. Meanwhile, Jack Dawson, a young artist with big dreams and little money, was traveling in third class. Jack had won his ticket to the Titanic in a lucky poker game, and he was thrilled to be on board. For Jack, the Titanic was a grand adventure, and he was excited about the opportunities that awaited him in America. He was full of energy, optimism, and a free spirit that drew people to him. Rose's unhappiness with her life is clear from the way she speaks and carries herself. Her narration reveals a deep sense of frustration and longing for something more than the rigid expectations of her high society life. Trapped in an engagement to Cal Hockley, a man who sees her as an object to control, and pressured by her mother, Ruth, to fulfill her duty to the family, Rose feels like a prisoner in a world of wealth and luxury. Despite the grandeur of the Titanic and its promise of a new beginning, she feels lost and suffocated by her circumstances. One evening, Rose finds herself drawn to the bow of the ship, standing at its very edge. The endless ocean stretching out before her seems to mirror her longing for freedom and a life beyond the confines of her privileged but stifling existence. The wind rushes around her as she gazes into the horizon. At that moment, Jack Dawson happens to be nearby and notices her. Alarmed, he quickly approaches and tries to stop her. Jack, a third-class passenger with a kind heart and a carefree outlook on life, speaks to her with honesty and compassion. He doesn't judge her but instead tries to connect with her pain, using his humor and charm to distract her from the darkness she's feeling. Jack tells her a story about falling into freezing water once, describing the shock and struggle it caused, which helps shift her focus and calm her emotions. Through his words and sincerity, Jack manages to convince Rose to climb back over the railing. But as she does, she slips, and Jack grabs her just in time, pulling her to safety. The commotion attracts attention, and crew members arrive, misunderstanding the situation and assuming Jack was attacking Rose. To save him from getting into trouble, Rose lies, saying Jack was helping her because she had slipped while leaning too far over the railing. This moment becomes a turning point for both of them. Despite coming from completely different worlds, after Jack saves Rose from her suicide attempt, their bond continues to grow. Cal decides to invite Jack to join them for dinner in the first-class dining room the following evening. While Cal's offer appears generous on the surface, there's a condescending undertone in his words, as though he's granting Jack a rare and undeserved privilege. His tone is polite but laced with superiority, as if reminding Jack that their worlds are vastly different. Rose begins to see Jack as more than just a poor artist. She admires his free-spirited and genuine nature, which contrasts sharply with the cold, controlling world of her wealthy fiancé, Cal. Their secret meetings continue, and they spend more time together. Rose and Jack are laughing and having fun as Jack teaches her how to spit like a man. They're carefree and enjoying each other's company, their friendship and budding connection growing stronger. In the middle of their playful lesson, Rose's mother, Ruth, appears, elegantly dressed and carrying herself with the usual air of superiority. Ruth, shocked to see her daughter behaving in such an unrefined manner and in the company of someone like Jack, approaches them. Her disapproving expression is hard to miss. Rose quickly composes herself, though she still has a glimmer of mischief in her eyes, and introduces Jack to her mother. "He's the man who saved my life the other night." She acknowledges his heroic act with a curt nod but makes it clear she doesn't consider him worthy of Rose's attention. However, the invitation presents a problem for Jack. He has nothing suitable to wear for such an extravagant dinner. In this moment of uncertainty, a lovely woman, a kind-hearted first-class passenger, comes to Jack's rescue. She notices his dilemma and decides to help him. Offers him the clothes of her son, who is not present for the evening. She insists that Jack wear the clothes, offering Jack a chance to enter a world that normally wouldn't welcome someone of his social standing. When Jack arrives at the dinner, wearing the borrowed clothes, he is a bit more confident but still very much aware of the glaring differences in class. The other guests, including Cal and Ruth, watch him closely, sizing him up. Jack's manners and his charm stand out, even though his appearance is a little out of place. While he tries to fit in, it's clear that he's not part of their world, and the tension between him and the wealthy passengers is palpable. Despite feeling like an outsider, Jack holds his ground, showing that he is comfortable with who he is, even if his clothes and background are different from theirs. Meanwhile, Cal's true intentions are clear. He invited Jack to dinner not out of kindness but to make a statement about social order, hoping to remind both Jack and Rose of their respective places. Cal wants to show Rose that Jack is just a poor artist who can never be a part of her world, no matter how much he may charm her. The whole experience is uncomfortable for Jack, but it's also a defining moment for him. He is an outsider in this rich circle, but the kindness of the woman who lent him the clothes, and his own self-assuredness in the face of judgment, show that he doesn't need the wealth or the status to feel valuable. Meanwhile, Rose's growing awareness of her own feelings and her increasing dissatisfaction with her life in this elite, controlled environment becomes even clearer. She is beginning to see how hollow her engagement to Cal really is, and the contrast between Jack's freedom and Cal's control only strengthens her desire to break free. He can't understand why she would be interested in someone who isn't rich or powerful. To him, Jack is beneath her, and he feels like he has to keep Rose away from him at all costs. To show his dominance and try to win back her affection, Cal gives Rose an expensive gift, the Heart of the Ocean, a beautiful diamond necklace. While the gift seems like a romantic gesture, it's really just another way for Cal to control Rose. He wants to remind her of the luxury and wealth she could have if she stays with him. After Jack has been invited to the first-class dinner by Cal, he and Rose continue to secretly develop their relationship, despite the obvious barriers between their social classes. One evening, Rose comes across Jack's sketches, beautiful drawings that capture the essence of life, including portraits of women in various poses. The drawing captivates Rose, not just because of its artistic beauty but also because it represents the freedom and emotional depth that she longs for in her own life. Moved by the sketch, Rose decides to invite Jack to her private quarters. She asks him to come to her cabin to sketch her wearing the Heart of the Ocean necklace, which she has been given by Cal as a symbol of their engagement. Rose wants Jack to capture her in this vulnerable moment, without the restrictions of her high society life. She is tired of playing the role of a wealthy, poised fiancé and wants to reclaim a sense of herself, to be seen as she truly is, beyond her family's expectations. She takes off her clothes, sitting for Jack in nothing but the Heart of the Ocean necklace, symbolizing her trust in him and the deepening bond between them. As Jack begins to sketch, Rose sheds her usual mask of wealth and social status and reveals herself as a young woman who wants to experience love and freedom, away from the constraints of her privileged life. However, their secret meeting doesn't go unnoticed. Cal, suspicious of Jack and Rose's growing relationship, sends his bodyguard, Spicer Lovejoy, to follow them. Lovejoy is assigned the task of keeping an eye on Jack and making sure he doesn't get too close to Rose. He soon becomes aware of the intimate sketching session between Jack and Rose and tries to intervene, leading to a tense chase across the ship. Rose and Jack, aware that they are being pursued, must escape before they are caught. The chase takes them through the grand halls of the Titanic, with Lovejoy in pursuit. They manage to evade him by slipping into a more secluded part of the ship, and their romance takes on an even more thrilling edge as they dodge the increasing danger posed by Cal and his enforcer. This chase, fueled by Cal's jealousy and Rose's growing desire for freedom, culminates in the couple sneaking into the luxurious first-class car, where they share an intimate, passionate moment. In the car, Their connection intensifies, and they kiss, finally giving in to the feelings they've been suppressing. It is a moment of pure romance and escape for both of them, as they can temporarily forget the world that tries to tear them apart. After Jack and Rose share a passionate kiss in the first-class car, their love reaches a new, intimate level. In that moment, they are lost in each other, fully giving in to their feelings. As they embrace, completely unaware of the impending danger, the ship's crew is busy with their own tasks, unaware of the disaster that is about to strike. The Titanic, widely believed to be unsinkable, is traveling at full speed through the icy waters of the Atlantic. As the ship moves through the night, the atmosphere shifts from romantic and carefree to tense and foreboding. The crew on the bridge begins to sense something is wrong, but it's too late. The ship's lookouts, who are supposed to be scanning the horizon for icebergs, fail to spot the massive iceberg in time. The Titanic is moving too fast through the icy waters, and before the crew can react, the ship strikes the iceberg. The collision is sudden and violent, and the Titanic shakes as the iceberg tears a massive gash along the side of the ship. The impact of the iceberg causes a loud, chilling sound that echoes throughout the ship. However, Jack and Rose are still lost in their passionate moment, completely unaware of the catastrophe unfolding. Outside, chaos is beginning to unfold as the crew starts to realize the gravity of the situation. Water begins to flood the lower decks, and the ship's crew scrambles to assess the damage. The situation grows more dire with every passing minute as they try to understand the extent of the destruction. Jack and Rose return to her cabin, still deeply immersed in their feelings for one another. They are both aware of the risks and the social barriers they are defying by being together, but their love is stronger than the obstacles that stand in their way. Rose, more than ever, is determined to follow her heart, despite the constraints of her privileged life and her engagement to the controlling Cal. In a cruel move to punish Jack and ensure that he stays away from Rose, Cal sets him up in a devious trap. They are unaware that Cal has already planned to frame Jack for something he didn't do. She is horrified to find Jack being accused of theft. Cal, pretending to be calm and composed, plays the role of the outraged, betrayed fiancé, while Jack is shocked and confused by the sudden accusation. Cal accuses Jack of stealing the heart of the ocean necklace, the priceless diamond that had been given to Rose as an engagement gift. In reality, Cal had orchestrated the entire situation, planting the necklace in a way that would make it seem as though Jack was responsible for its disappearance. Rose is devastated by the turn of events, but she refuses to let Jack be treated unfairly. She tries to defend him, but the situation is already spiraling out of control. Jack is escorted by Lovejoy and the crew, who believe he is guilty, and is taken to the ship's lower decks to be locked up in a holding cell. Rose is left feeling helpless and torn, knowing that her love for Jack has put him in grave danger. As Jack is thrown into the cell, he remains calm and composed, understanding that Cal has framed him. Jack knows that Rose was not involved in the setup, and that it was all part of Cal's plan to separate them and maintain control over her. Meanwhile, the crew members work desperately to organize the evacuation, lowering lifeboats into the freezing sea. However, there aren't enough lifeboats for everyone on board, and the growing panic intensifies as people realize that many will not survive. Meanwhile, Rose struggles with her emotions. She knows that she has to act fast to help Jack, but the threat of Cal's power and influence makes her feel trapped. Determined not to let Jack suffer because of Cal's actions, Rose takes a bold step. She decides to risk everything to free him from the cell, even though doing so will put her own safety and social standing in jeopardy. With the Titanic sinking and chaos spreading throughout the ship, Rose knows that she must act quickly before it's too late. The suspense grows as she makes her way to the lower decks, where Jack is being held, knowing that her plan is dangerous but her love for him is stronger than her fear. When Rose finally reaches Jack's cell, the moment is tense, but she is determined to free him. She knows that if she doesn't, both of them may be lost to the sinking ship. Rose's bravery and resolve are evident as she risks everything to help Jack escape. Rose manages to locate a crewman's axe and returns to free Jack. In a tense moment, she carefully swings the axe to break the chains binding him, despite her fear of missing and injuring Jack. Her bravery and quick thinking save his life, and together, they escape the flooded lower decks. The two of them now face the daunting challenge of surviving the sinking Titanic. As they make their way through the ship, the situation grows more dire. Passengers are trapped in corridors, families are separated, and the once mighty ship begins to tilt at a steep angle. The lower-class passengers are blocked by locked gates, unable to reach the upper decks where the lifeboats are being loaded. Jack and Rose work together to overcome obstacles, helping each other navigate the chaos and danger. Their love and determination to survive are the only things keeping them going as the disaster unfolds around them. Amid the chaos, Cal continues his relentless pursuit of Rose and Jack. Furious at Rose for rejecting him and jealous of her love for Jack, Cal becomes increasingly unhinged. Armed with Lovejoy's pistol, Cal hunts them through the ship, aiming to kill Jack and force Rose to stay with him. The once polished and composed Cal reveals his true, ruthless nature, consumed by his need for control and revenge. Cal corners Jack and Rose in the dining room of the sinking ship. The water is rising rapidly, and the room is already half flooded. Cal fires the pistol at them, but they manage to evade him by diving into the water and escaping through the submerged parts of the ship. Cal loses sight of them, and his obsession with the heart of the ocean causes him to retrieve the necklace instead of continuing the chase. As the Titanic continues to sink, the situation becomes even more desperate. The ship's stern rises high into the air as the bow plunges deeper into the icy water. Passengers cling to anything they can find, trying to hold on as the ship begins to break apart. Jack and Rose make their way to the stern, knowing it's their only chance of survival. The chaos is overwhelming, with people screaming and fighting for their lives as the Titanic's final moments draw near. When the ship finally breaks in two, Jack and Rose cling to the railing as the stern begins its final descent into the ocean. In a terrifying plunge, they are thrown into the freezing water, surrounded by hundreds of other passengers struggling to stay afloat. The icy cold is unbearable, and many people succumb to the freezing temperatures almost immediately. Jack and Rose manage to find a piece of wooden debris floating in the water. Jack helps Rose climb onto the makeshift raft, but there isn't enough room for both of them. Knowing that Rose's survival is more important, Jack stays in the freezing water, holding onto the edge of the raft and reassuring her that she will survive. Despite the unimaginable cold, Jack's love for Rose keeps him focused on her safety. He reassures her, saying she will go on to live a full, happy life and never give up. As dawn approaches, the rescue boats begin returning to search for survivors. Rose, nearly frozen and exhausted, realizes that Jack has stopped responding. She shakes him gently, calling his name, desperately trying to wake him up. Her voice is filled with both fear and heartbreak as she realizes that Jack has succumbed to the cold, sacrificing his life so that she could live. Overcome with grief, Rose tearfully tells him she will never forget him and that she'll fulfill the dreams he had for her. Summoning the last of her strength, Rose lets go of Jack's hand, allowing his body to sink into the dark ocean. Determined to survive, Rose looks up and sees a rescue boat in the distance. She realizes this is her chance to live, as Jack had wanted for her. Rose calls out to the boat, but her voice is weak, barely audible in the cold air. She forces herself into the freezing water and swims to a nearby whistle left by one of the ship's officers. She blows the whistle as loudly as she can, the sound piercing through the silence. The crew on the rescue boat hears her, and they come to her aid, pulling her out of the water and saving her life. Later, on the rescue ship, the survivors gather, shivering and traumatized from the night's events. Rose, now completely alone, realizes she must take control of her own destiny. She spots Cal searching among the survivors, clearly looking for her. Knowing she cannot return to the life she left behind, a life of control, wealth, and suffocation, she makes a bold decision. When the crew asks for her name, she answers, Rose Dawson, adopting Jack's last name as a way to honor him and to create a new identity for herself. By doing so, she ensures that Cal and her mother, Ruth, won't find her, allowing her to start fresh. While rummaging through the coat Cal had given her before the ship went down, she finds the heart of the ocean diamond tucked into one of the pockets. In the final moments of the movie, the story returns to the present day. She has just finished recounting her incredible and emotional experience on the Titanic. Rose's story has captivated them, giving them far more insight into the human tragedy of the Titanic than they ever expected. That evening, Rose steps out onto the deck of the research ship, alone under the starry night sky. She carries something small in her hand, a stunning blue diamond, the heart of the ocean. All this time, the diamond they had been searching for was not at the bottom of the Atlantic but with Rose herself. She had secretly kept it for decades, a hidden link to her past and a personal reminder of her life-changing journey and the love she shared with Jack. Holding the diamond, Rose pauses and looks at it one last time, and gently tosses it over the side of the ship. It falls silently into the ocean, disappearing into the depths where the Titanic rests. The movie ends with Rose lying peacefully in her bed. Surrounding her are photos of her adventurous life, flying planes, riding horses, and traveling the world. All the things Jack had once dreamed she would do. As she closes her eyes, the film transitions into a dreamlike sequence where Rose is back on the Titanic, restored to its former glory. She walks through the ship, reuniting with Jack at the grand staircase, surrounded by those who perished. In this ethereal moment, they embrace, their love enduring beyond time and tragedy. Thank you for joining us on this emotional voyage through one of the most iconic films in cinematic history. Be sure to subscribe to Film Flip Recap. Stay tuned for more captivating content, and see you in the next recap.